Hello, everyone. My name is Erzsie Elizabeth, and I will be doing your training today. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in Toastmasters since 2009, on and off, lots of hiccups along the way. Became pretty active in 2015, and since then, I've held the position of President, Vice President PR, Secretary Treasurer, and I've been an area director. Oh, I've also been a president. I'm currently a president. Should remember that. And I'm excited to be here. I've chaired one of these events before, but I've actually never taught one of the events before. So this will be a first for me, and hopefully you will be able to follow along and enjoy it as much as I do. I'm going to bring up the slideshow and we will get started. You can still see me. All right, so this is our Vice President Public Relations. It's okay if you're not this officer. Some of you are here just because this is one of the last trainings and you had to be here. So if you're not a VP of PR, VPPR, that's okay too. You can still learn something new today. We're going to talk about the role, the responsibilities, the resources. Our objectives. Now let's talk about the role itself. Can anybody tell me what is the responsibility or what is the role of Vice President Public Relations?
To promote the club.
Yes. Yes, what else?
To help partner with, well, this is my role, to help partner with the VP of membership, because there's kind of a intersection of funneling in potential new members and then passing them on to a VP of membership.
Yes, in my club, definitely our VPM and our VPPR work very closely together since they're the same person. All right, so I'm seeing some more answers here in the chat. Great, Tanya and Amanda, thank you for your answers. Protect the Toastmasters brand, definitely very important. Liaise with the press. Amanda, have you ever had an opportunity to liaise with the press? Yes, she has. That's great. Oh, sorry. Okay, that is fine, Amanda. We'll just move forward then.
There. So sorry, that was very rude, but I took a bite and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Nobody's gonna ask me anything. Like what not to do in a Toastmasters meeting. So yes, I've done press releases to local smaller papers back when that was a thing. And I found that even in present time, there are fewer small local papers, but the major papers have local desks. So I haven't been doing this role for my club here, but if I were to do that today, it would be, oh, I might reach out to Seattle Times and get our stuff on their calendar. We do a lot with Meetup. And I basically tried to create a list for myself and brainstorm with other members. What press do you read? Like, is it The Stranger, Seattle Times? Is there a paper? You sometimes see them in little restaurants, like trying to remember the name of one. But all of those little free papers, they need content. They may not need my content, but I figure they can't use it if I don't send it. So
true, it's true. Well, that's great. That's a great example of being that role. Moving forward, how about our responsibilities? You talked a lot about that as far as liaising with the press and with our VP membership, sometimes with the treasurer as well, getting that member set up and get going. And sometimes that requires a little bit of nudging for different officers. So your role as Vice President Public Relations, as stated in the club constitution, is that this person is the fourth ranking officer and is responsible for developing and directing a publicity program that informs individual members and the general public about Toastmasters International. The Vice President Public Relations chairs the Public Relations Committee. Now, if you're Vice President Public Relations, how many of you have formed a committee? One example of that would be deciding to hold an open house. You definitely cannot do that alone. You need to have people that are willing to step up and do some of the paperwork and recruiting and obviously publicizing on social media. That's not something you could do alone. So it doesn't necessarily mean you always have a committee throughout the year, but for those events, you definitely want one. And if you know who's going to be the VPPR for the following year, you can say, why don't you work with me now? You can be my assistant, and then next year you will be an expert at this role. And that could be your committee of one. Let's see. So what can the VPPR do before club meetings? Any answers? Michael, I like what you said there as well. Okay, so before club meetings, this is where we talked about liaising with the vice president membership, making sure that when you're contacting a new person who's reached to that out to the contact form, to your Facebook contact, or to Meetup, if that's where you also have publicized your club. When you're reaching out to that person, you also want to let the VP membership know. So maybe you're copying them on the email to let them know this is a new person. They're going to be great. They're going to be here. Make sure we welcome them in our club. That's a great way you can interact with the vice president membership. Also let your president know. The president will be glad to welcome this new person, and especially if they know ahead of time, it's very helpful. And they talk about your role during the meeting. Not a whole lot you're doing during the meeting, except for being a good listener and paying attention and letting others know that this is a great club to be at. This is the thing that slips my mind because we're not meeting in person right now. But if you are meeting in person, yes, okay, I like that, Michael. We do a recap of the meeting, speeches, funny stories, and fun had on our site after the meeting. That's great. That's absolutely great. So yeah, we're not distributing promotional materials, but if we were in person, then we would definitely be advertising our next meeting and letting people know at the meeting what's coming up next. If we're having something special, we're going to have a meetup or outside of the club meeting, then that's definitely something you would want to be doing during the meeting. We've talked a little bit about what we do outside of the meeting. Most important thing is that you're promoting the club. You're promoting the brand of Toastmasters. So you're keeping that in mind every time that you're talking about your club, remembering that you're representing your club, you're representing Toastmasters. Your club has a website. Are you updating your website? It's something that we've done in each of my two clubs, and that is we post on the website when we have our new officers. We make sure that our Zoom link is up to date on the website. We make sure that we're getting our emails from the contact us email. What email is that going to? So we can make sure we're responding to them. If you have your meetup page, you want to make sure you have it listed for each club meeting that you're going to have. And then with Facebook, post on the days that you have your club meeting. Maybe you know you're going to have 2 awesome prepared speeches. Talk about that. Tonight, my club digital transformation is having its contest. So I talked about that. So there's so much you can do to promote your club, and you should be doing that on a regular basis, especially as a VPPR. I don't know, do any of your clubs have newsletters? No? Okay.
We
something-
use LinkedIn though.
Posters.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. Was that Michael?
Yep.
What do
We
you-
actually create posters. We're a corporate club, so we actually create a monthly poster with all of our meetings on it, a QR code to contact the board, as well as a list of where the meetings are, the times they are, and a link to our site.
Excellent. Are you at Microsoft?
Costco.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I know some of the corporate offices, they do have a spot where they can put all different types of meetings, all the different types of members can put whatever they have for their meetings, and if you have that opportunity, you should definitely be using it. One thing that we might forget, when you're an officer, you want to attend those extra meetings, because that's another opportunity for you to reach out to new members to your club. Depending on what your little niche is in your club, if no one knows about it, then who's going to attend? Even if you want other members from other clubs to join your club, how are they going to know about it? And one way they'll know about it is if you're attending these other events like the leadership breakfast, are you going to the contest, the area contest, the division contest, the district convention? These are all areas where you can meet other Toastmasters and also promote your club. And then how many of you have your executive meetings once a month with the rest of your officers? Okay, that's also important, just to collaborate on what everybody's doing and making sure that everything you're doing is in coordination with everyone else. We talked a little bit about your successor. Thank you, Victoria. Yes, very important to share photos. Also, make sure, I have a cat that's meowing, just so that you know. It's very important to ask your members, get their consent about having their pictures online. Sometimes you'll want to show a club picture, but you'll have to blur out their face or tell them, I'm taking a picture, go ahead and turn off your camera. Or if you're meeting in person, to just say, okay, this is a photo opportunity. You didn't want this, so why don't you go ahead and step aside? But photos are excellent for any type of media, social media.
See, Omar has his hand up.
Okay, Omar, please let
Hi,
us
Erzsie.
know.
Something that I found was useful over the years is when some of the advanced clubs actually get an opportunity to ask for Toastmaster moments. How has Toastmasters actually allowed you to do a particular endeavor, a particular task, whether it was a eulogy, whether it was to speak in front of a crowd right off the bat, using those stories as from members of your own club, whether it's through social media or newsletter, and say, hey, if you've ever had a difficulty in creating a eulogy, someone in our club actually did that. You ought to come out and take a look at what we do. It just allows one way for public relations, not just to be about Toastmasters, but why Toastmasters can actually fulfill some of the needs in their lives. That's something to take into consideration also.
Thank you for that, Omar. All right, so now we're on our four questions actually of our roles. So I have another question for you is, what are the most important responsibilities? And we've talked a lot about that. This is just participation for paying attention, comprehension, all of that kind of stuff. And you can speak it out or you can write it in the text.
So can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. What are the most important responsibilities of the VPPR? You know, we've talked about them. I just want to have you echo them back. And you can type it or you can say it. Okay. Amanda. Anybody else before I move on? You're understanding the role. It sounds like pretty good. Victoria, thank you. Represent the club, partner with the VPM. Yes, all of that is good stuff. Social media, definitely. We have a small group, so I'm not going to put us into smaller groups. But think about this as you're in your responsibilities. How will you fulfill this responsibility? Are you setting time apart during the week to be promoting your club, to be talking about events, to be posting pictures? Do you have that time set aside during the week or during the month? How are you going to plan your time to be in this role? Setting goals. Talk briefly about committee, also about your replacement, who's available to help you, and any materials or resources. If you don't know where to go, you can go to your president. Your president can go on up the chain, but for the most part, you're going to find these resources on the Toastmasters website. They have so much information there. You can find slideshows, you can find instruction manuals. So if you need any help with that, then it's definitely there to help you. All right, here's some more of what we talked about. Let you take a look at that. You do talk about having a committee. Does anybody have a year-long committee? You do, okay. So Victoria, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our officers, I'm in West Seattle Toastmasters. We have 12 months officers, so we don't do like 6 months or whatever. It's always 12 months, so it's year long. And yeah, and with that, like we plan in the beginning of the Toastmasters year, all of the activities for the rest of the year. And then we just adjust as needed.
Okay, and then you have people aside from the officers that are helping you with that around the year?
No, we're pretty like smaller group, and we have a lot of new members, which is great, but also they kind of which is good. They're more involved into the pathways and speaking than leadership roles. So yeah, so I on VPPR don't have unfortunately any kind of my own committee or help, but by helping it plan a little bit in advance helps, because even for example, you mentioned on a slide earlier, like social media updates, like website updates. I actually set myself reminders. So I know every other week I have to go and do something either on our Facebook page and it's just like, pings my phone, my calendar says, hey, it's time to update Toastmasters website. Next week, it tells me to update the page. So yeah, if you kind of set it up in advance, it's manageable by one person. Not ideal, but it's doable.
You have a small club, yeah, you don't necessarily need your committee. As I had mentioned before, having a committee right before a big event, it's definitely helpful to have some people helping you out, but you don't necessarily need one for the entire year, unless you have a big club. If you have a big club, you definitely want to have some help there. But I definitely don't want to dismiss that. All right, so one thing we didn't talk about was reviewing or ordering public relations materials. And again, this is all done on the Toastmasters International website. You can go to the store to purchase items for your club. And here are some additional resources for you. Are there any questions? Yes, I like what Michael wrote. Committees are great for training and getting people familiar with the board roles, even if you have the members willing to participate. That's great. Having that committee to help you is definitely a great thing. It could, you know what, I have not looked at level 4, Amanda, but thank you. It could count for a pathway. Definitely mentoring.
Yeah, I think, Amanda, yeah, I actually have done one of my own projects within level 4 to get credit, and it was like a develop social media strategy or something, and it benefited the club, but also I got the credit. So yeah, I highly recommend it for other members, even if you're not a VPPR, but because there's 1 or 2 projects 100% perfect for in pathways in level 4 for VPPR role.
That's great. There's some encouragement for you to advance in your pathways.
And I had a question about the resources, the slide you just shared.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if Toastmasters, because like some clubs are hybrid now and some are still like online only and some are coming back in person, but do you know how are they kind of releasing more resources? I mean, I check regularly, but I haven't seen like honestly much updated since COVID times for specifically for VPPR, and I wonder if, like, do we know how they decide how often they update those resources? Because as a VPPR, I honestly sometimes wish I had more. Like even the photo library or the image library or some of the branding templates they give. I'm like, I've been using them for 2 years now. I want something different, but I want to comply with the brand guidelines.
Oh, definitely. I'm going to defer that question to Linda because I really don't know.
You know, I don't have an answer for that, Victoria, but what I would say is write to them. I personally have written to them several times and said, for example, like I noticed that on the TI website and on the convention website, you're using things that are not in the brand manual. Can I use those? Like, you know, hello, like, can you please update the brand manual? And they're like, oh, we're testing. So I wrote a year later, okay, you're still testing, it's been a year, like seriously, you know. So I would definitely write to the public relations department and say, hey, because I'm like you, it seemed like there used to be a lot more pictures and then they just, they reduced them down to like basic. And I'm like, where'd all the pictures go? And I wrote them about that too. And then they just sent me the basic. I'm like, okay, we all know where the basic picture set is. But where's the ones we used to use?
Yeah.
So I would definitely write.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of clubs are going back to either doing a hybrid or doing in person. I know for our Leading Ladies Club, we're hoping to meet in person at least once a week. So that could be another thing with VPPR is that you're coordinating with your surgeon at arms. If you're in the process of looking for a place to start meeting again, someone you can collaborate with. All right. Are there any other questions? All right, well, seeing no other questions, I hope you have learned a lot or refreshed if you've had this position many times. I'm going to post a link to a survey in the chat. If you could go ahead and fill that out, let Toastmasters know or let our leadership know how wonderful I am. And this has been recorded. If you do need a repeat of the recording, you want to talk to Linda.
We can put the recording on YouTube. I'm just wondering if there's any more questions. And sometimes people like to wait till the recording's off. So I can turn the recording off and we can have a question session if you'd like.